If a couple is going through a divorce and they have vehicles, it's very important to understand a couple of principles and trends and ideas with regards to vehicles that, if not followed, can create some major mistakes. So if a couple has, first of all, it's determining whether or not is a debt or an asset. If a couple has a truck that has a market value of $15,000, market value is the value that they could sell it for on the open market, not trade-in value. It's the value they could sell it if they put a sign on in the window out on the street, and the amount that Kelley Blue Book says or the NADA book says would be the private party value, I think is the term that's used, and they sell that. If they owe money on the truck, using that example, if it's worth $15,000 for a market value and they owe $10,000, they have an asset that is worth $5,000. Couples sometimes get confused here because they think they have a $15,000 asset, and while the truck is worth $15,000, it's still owed $10,000, so it's really only a $5,000 marital asset. If one of the parties is keeping the truck, then in that case, they would, when determining the overall addition that they're going to make to their pile of debts and assets, they would have, with a $15,000 truck and a $10,000 loan, they would have a $5,000 positive amount going into their pile. And if we use another example, let's say they have a truck that is worth $5,000, but they owe $10,000. And the individual that is keeping that truck would not have a $10,000 debt. They're going to have a $5,000 debt. If they sold the truck, they would need to come up with an additional $5,000 in order to get the title back from the bank so they could sell it. So it thus becomes a $5,000 debt in that case. When the couples own a vehicle, if both of them are on a loan and they decide to keep the vehicle, they're going to want to make sure they put specific language that states that the individual that is keeping it and going to be responsible for making the payment, that there is a remedy that they agree to if for some reason they stop making that payment. The reason for that is, if they stop making that payment, then the other party's credit's going to be adversely affected. So usually some language will be added that says, if it is agreed that the husband is going to keep the truck and he is going to make the payment, and he misses a payment and it causes the wife's credit to be affected, then they agree that the truck will immediately be sold, and any payments that the wife has to make to protect her credit will be repaid back to her from the proceeds of the sale. And if there's not enough, that will be an amount that the husband is required to pay her, and is required to pay her at a certain time. And a mediator will help you put that language together. If you treat the vehicles casually and don't put the proper language in, it can have a very, very adverse effect on both of the parties' credit. And that's the first mistake. The second mistake is assessing the appropriate debt or asset value to the vehicle when factoring in the market value versus the loan that's against the property. It's never worth 100% of the market value unless there's no debt, and it's never considered 100% of a debt unless the zero has no value. You have to offset it with the amounts that are owed against the market value to determine what the net debt or asset value is.